Happy morning. Well, I think it's happy Monday morning for most of you. And it's the evening time if you are in China. And the afternoon if you're over in the African continent. All right, I'm going to come up in just a second. All right, make sure you all can see me. I'm sitting a little bit high today, a little bit higher than usual. Okay. All right. And I do want to say, while I'm waiting for live attendees to come on, I just want to say thank you so much to those of you who are watching the replay. I get a good giggle, a good chuckle every time I go back to watch YouTube, and I see all of your comments as if you were watching it live. And so I really appreciate that, seriously. And I do want to say once again, thank you so much for tuning into today's Monday Motivation. Let's talk. Good morning to you. For those of you who do not know who I am, or maybe it's your first time visiting my channel or my Facebook page, my name is Dr. Charity C. Campbell, and I am a world-class millennial global leader, a multi-passionate entrepreneur, an academic professional, international speaker, mentor, and digital organization development and leadership specialist. I do help millennials. Those my hearts, okay? Because I am a millennial myself, a millennial professional. But I help millennial multi-passionate entrepreneur leaders just like you go from clutter to clarity, improve communication skills, and harness your greatest potential without losing balance. And one of the ways that I do that is by being a source of motivation for you on Mondays. I like doing Monday motivation because I feel like if I can get you at the very beginning of your week, okay, not including Sunday, because, Sunday we reserve that specifically, well, I mean, it's COVID times now, so things have changed a little bit, but we reserve that time usually for church or for relaxing or trying to recover from Monday through Friday of the week before. But so on Monday mornings, I like to do a Monday motivation for those of you who are in the States, or those of you who are Western time, you're in the States. I like to do a motivational, okay, Monday morning motivation, so that you have some fuel, some energy that will help you get going throughout the rest of your week. Monday comes, some people have Monday blues. I like Mondays. Okay, Mondays to me are great. I mean, I feel like Mondays are just as good as Fridays. So, I mean, when you build a life you love, every day can be Friday, it can be Thursday, Tuesday, whatever day you want it to be, whatever your favorite day is. So, but I know many people, especially in our culture, in our work culture, many people strongly dislike Mondays. And so I started doing this Let's Talk live series back in 2020, last year, because I just believed that people needed a dose of motivation, a dose of inspiration to kind of help them stay positive, start positive, okay? Because that's what you want to do. You want to start positive on a Monday and then stay positive all throughout the week. So if you are tuning in, you are watching live, please drop an emoji or drop a hello, say something in the comment section. I already saw my mom, Campbell. Good morning to you once again. But drop, hey Nina, good morning to you. So we have attendees that come on from YouTube and from Facebook. That's the beauty of using this system. Like, you're able to tune in from whichever platform you enjoy or use the most. So I do want to say thank you once again for tuning in, and let's get started. So again, our topic today is barrier breakers. Barrier breakers. All right, that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I want to come from Micah in the Bible, chapter 2, verse 13 in the NIV version. And it reads, "The one who breaks open the way will go up before them. They will break through the gate and go out. Their king will pass through before them, the Lord at their head." Okay. All right. And the word of the Lord is blessed. So once again, I just want to read that really quickly. It says, "The one who breaks open the way will go up before them." Okay. They will break through the gate and go out. Their king will pass through before them, the Lord at their head. All right. So let me just, before we go into talking about what barriers are and the different types of barriers, I just want to give you a little bit of backstory about what's happening here in Micah. So in the Bible, Micah was this like really dope prophet. He was a type of prophet where he would kind of give you a mixture of God's judgment, like his punishment, and then also his loving kindness. And what was happening here is the children of Israel, they were tripping again. Y'all know how the children of Israel were. They was flip-floppy back and forth. One minute they love God, the next minute they love all these other idols. And that's what was happening. So they put themselves, they actually created situations, unnecessary blockages, unnecessary barriers in their life because they were disobedient and because they strayed away from their Savior, their Lord. And the thing that I really love about the Israelites, any book in the Bible, in the Old Testament, you read about the Israelites, you see they were crazy, okay? One moment, they loved the Lord. The next moment, they was like, God, who? Jehovah, who? They weren't thinking about him like that, okay? But the thing that I really do appreciate is that they always had, after they dealt with some issues, after they received that punishment enough, they ended up having a repentant heart. They had a repentant heart. And so that's kind of where that balance comes in with Micah, as he, in the beginning of chapter 2, he was giving the punishment. He said, this is what you did, and this is the punishment, and this is what thus saith the Lord, da, 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 da. And then towards the end of the chapter, he goes and he gives the scripture that we just read, that we just went over, about the Lord breaking forth, going through before him. I'll read it again. The one who breaks open the way will go up before them. This is after they repented. This is after they got back on track, right? And they will break through the gate and go out, meaning the Israelites will finally be able to break through the barriers that they basically set up for themselves. They set those barriers up for themselves by being disobedient and loving other gods, right? So, so here now, as we're in the 21st century, right? We want to take a look at what barriers look like for us. Okay. Now I don't want to, dive too deep into us being like Israelites, any of that. I want to talk to you. I want to talk to the person that's on the other side of this phone, that's on the other side of this computer, that's on the other side of this TV. Hello, smart TVs. I want to talk to the person who's on the other side of this tablet, of this iPad, who is saying, man, I feel like I just can't move. I've tried everything. I have, I really, really, really have tried to be successful. I've tried to use all the tools that I have, and I just can't seem to break through this barrier. I just can't seem to get past this barrier that I have, that's in front of me. And I want to actually define what a barrier is first. Okay, let's take a look at the definition of barrier. So a barrier, there are different types of barriers, actually, not just from what we're going to talk about, but actually different definitions of barriers. So the first one is like the literal barrier. It's like a fence or some other type of obstacle that prevents movement or access. We think of, like a brick wall. We think of a gate that's locked. You can't go out. We think of, like they say, a fence. A barricade, think about, something that is blocking, right? Even a roadblock, that's a barrier. Anything that stops you from moving forward or getting to the destination that you're trying to get to. In terms of British English, a barrier is a gate at a car park or railway station that controls access by being raised or lowered. It has to be controlled in order for it to move. And then we have another, which is the most common one. This is the one that we're going to focus on today. It is a circumstance or obstacle that keeps people or things apart or prevents communication or progress. Yeah, that third one. That third one is the one we're going to dig into. So again, it says a circumstance or obstacle that keeps people or things apart or prevents communication or progress. Okay. All right. Now, if you're rocking with me, put an emoji or something down in the comment section if you're watching live. And if you're watching a replay, go ahead and let me know that you're rocking with me. Tell, hey, I'm rocking with you. I'm still here. Okay. All right. So the types of barriers that we have. There are 4 different types that I actually want to share with you, if that's okay. There are 4 different types of barriers that I want to share with you. And the very first type of barrier is physical barrier. Okay, this is the physical barrier. Now, and go ahead and type physical barrier in the comments. Physical barrier, that's the very first one. Physical barrier. Now, this physical barrier, it is an object or circumstance that hinders you from moving forward or accessing a particular location, okay, or a particular thing. So it impedes your access, okay? You don't have access to it. You can't move forward, all right? So this is the physical barrier. It's an object. It's a roadblock. It's physically, okay, physically, it's an object or a circumstance. If we're talking about a barrier that, you know, you just can't seem to get it together. Like you just can't seem to get that progress rocking, then this is a physical barrier. Now, there's also another type of barrier that I don't want to jump ahead, but I'm going to come back to that one because I almost got into that. Let's go to the second type, communication barrier. Now, for those of you who do know me, you know that I specialize in communication, organizational communication, cross-cultural communications, and just relational communication in general. And one of the things that is extremely frustrating is when there are communication barriers. Okay, communication barriers. So go ahead and type communication barrier in the comment. Communication barriers is when you have an inability to access information or express yourself in a way that is easily understood. Okay, so when you have a communication barrier, when it says you have the inability, there is an inability to access information. That means receiving information, receiving data, receiving information. That can be in a conversation. If you're trying to have a conversation with someone and, you know, there's just, it's not clear. There's no understanding. It's really frustrating. It's really, really frustrating. It's like you want to express yourself, but you're unable to do that. Okay. So that's part of like communication barriers. There are so many other types of communication barriers as well. But one thing that I do want to say is especially in education. Okay. You know, I'm an educator, higher education, especially as an educator. When COVID happened, it really, really, really challenged our means and methods of communication in education. It really, really challenged the way that we relate to people, especially if, for me, you all know that I'm an expat, so I'm here in China. But at the time I was back in the States. And so we had to have classes online. We had to get new systems and things set in place so that we would be able to operate effectively. It was very, very challenging. And the communication was also a challenge, because just because we have technology now, it doesn't mean that it made the communication easier. Anything that is sent in a text message or an email, it doesn't necessarily carry your tone all the time. So a simple message that you can send in an email could come off offensive, as offensive to someone who's reading it, depending on their mental state at the time, depending on how they're feeling. So there were several communication barriers that we had and that we still have, but we're working around them, right? We're working around them and we're trying to improve. So when we have communication barriers, I'll bring that back up. It is when there is an inability to access information, whether it's verbal information, written information, formal, informal. It's just you can't access the information. It's very difficult. There's a blockage. Also, if it's difficult for you to express yourself in a way that is easily understood. That is a communication barrier. Okay. So that's the second one. Now we're moving on to the third one. This is the one that I was going to talk about a few moments ago. Attitudinal barriers. Okay. So for this one, you could just type in attitude in the comment section. Attitudinal barriers are inaccurate beliefs or perceptions about an ability based on assumptions and lack of knowledge. I'm going to read that again because we definitely have attitudinal barriers that we need to break through, okay? Attitudinal barriers are inaccurate beliefs or perceptions about an ability based on assumptions and lack of knowledge, okay? So when we are talking about attitudinal barriers, we're going to go there. We're talking about the way we talk to ourselves. We're talking about that self-talk. We're talking about the way we think, now, this is the thing, because I put attitudinal barriers close to the next one that I'm going to talk about because they go hand in hand. They kind of play off of each other. But attitudinal barriers, it can, we talked about paralysis last week on the Leaders Lab podcast, the paralysis of perfection. When you are paralyzed, you can't move forward, right? Or you can't move. You have no feeling, right? You can't move. And when our attitudes get this thought, this negative thinking that we are unable to succeed, or we're unable to get that promotion, or we're unable to meet the right person, or we're unable to lose weight, or we're unable to, graduate, get all of these things. Okay. All of these things. Hello, boo. Thank you for joining us from Zimbabwe. When we start to think these things, these attitudes, we have these negative assumptions. We have these negative beliefs that basically tell us you're not going to be able to do this. You won't succeed in this. You won't succeed in that. That's a barrier. It blocks you from being able to actually do the thing that you're thinking in your mind that you can't. And I love what it says. I love the term, the definition, because it says it's an inaccurate belief. It means it's not right. It ain't right. It's an inaccurate belief or perception about your own ability. Or it could be about the ability of somebody else, which kind of takes us into the systemic barriers. So the way we think, our attitudes, how we see things, it impedes your growth. It impedes your progress if you are doing it in a way to where you're just saying, I can't do this, or I'm not going to be successful, or, man, I really, really wish that I could be better at administration because I would love to get this promotion, or man, I really, really wish that I was a better entrepreneur because I could be rolling in some dough right now. All of these things, you are creating your own barriers. You are creating your own blockages. You are creating your own wall that you are barricading yourself in due to doubt and not believing that you are the awesome person that you are and that you can move forward. Okay. I had another word in my mind that I was going to use, but it's totally inappropriate. So I'm not going to say that. But so the way we think, and we're talking about attitudinal barriers right now. Attitudes affects our society. Attitudes affects our culture. It affects our systems, which brings me to the fourth type of barrier, systemic barriers. Okay. Systemic barriers are they are practices or policies that discriminate against individuals through exclusion. Okay. So you can just type in the comments, systemic. If you want to put systemic barriers, the whole thing, you can, but you can just also put systemic. So that's what I want to see. Systemic barriers are set practices or policies that discriminate against individuals through exclusion. One of the, I'm sure you all are familiar or you have heard of systemic racism, right? Systemic racism. When we are talking about anything that is systemic, a systemic barrier, it means that you are now, here's a system that is set in place. Here are policies, here are practices, here are specific things that are placed in society, in an organization, in a company, okay, to keep you back, to keep you from moving forward, to hold you back, and to keep you from moving forward. This is a type of barrier where you may feel like you have no say over anything. You feel like you're out, you're not the one who is managing the system or even have a say in it. You might be an employee or a team member, and the people who are above you or over you, you're just like, man, I'm excluded from this because I don't have any power, any say so. I'm just an employee or I'm just a team member. And the truth is, there are ways that you can break through these barriers, and we're going to talk about some of those. Okay, so I'm going to show you one more time the 4 types of barriers. We went over physical barrier, communication barrier, attitudinal barrier, and systemic barrier. Okay, so those are 4: physical, communication, attitudinal, and systemic. Okay. Now, I don't have notes for you to take on this, like written down. I have my little egg looking thing, okay? But I don't have notes for you to take because at this point, I'm going to be speaking to you from my experience and from my heart. When it comes to breaking physical barriers. Now, have you ever heard of a pain barrier? If you have, let me know in the comments. Pain barrier. Pain barrier is when you might hear, like in sports or an athlete, an announcer will say, man, this athlete is playing through that barrier of pain, like that pain barrier, meaning that regardless of how they feel, regardless of the injury, they're still like pushing themselves with wisdom, hopefully, but they're still pushing themselves forward to be able to complete whether it's the sport or at least finish the game, right? There are so many times when there are things that are put in our life, physical things that are put in our lives that cause us to feel like we can't move forward. It's true. For me, one of the things that has usually been a physical barrier for me, and I would say actually it came from my attitude or my mindset, my belief. But one of the things several years ago that I decided to just stop letting it be a barrier was my weight. Okay. Now y'all know I'm not a slim goodie. Okay. I'm not a little thin chick. I'm not slim. None of that. I am nice and plump. Okay. Plump with 2 P's. Okay, let's just go and put that out there. Your girl, I'm not slim. I'm not skinny. Okay, and the way my body is, I had to accept the fact that I would never be super skinny. But that's not my goal anyway. My goal is to be strong. My goal is to be healthy. My goal is to be fit so that when I'm walking up steps, I can still breathe and not pass out by step number 4. Okay. Just think about my real goals. But I allowed my physical, my body, my weight to be a barrier for so many years. Now, a lot of people, they didn't know until I actually started sharing my story with them. And while I was losing weight, because people were asking me, oh my God, what are you doing? How are you losing weight? How are you getting so fit? You look great. And in my mind, I'm like, I still weigh a whole lot, but the way my body is shaped, thank God for my structure. The way my body is shaped, it just looks like I weigh much, much less than what I do. And so I remember years ago, I said, I'm going to get active. I'm just going to get active, and I will, one step at a time, because most of the time, thank you. Most of the time, we want to have this big, huge system set in place that we tackle all at once. And it's a bit overwhelming. I can't speak for you, but I can speak for me. Like, I am so great at creating these big, massive goals and plans and putting them down. I'm like, I'm starting all of this. And I start. But at some point, I'm like, this is overwhelming. I need to break this thing down. And so I started tackling my physical barriers bit by bit. I started simply, especially when I came to China. Now, before I did like juice fast. Even if you're watching on YouTube, you can go back and look at my most popular video. My most popular video was day 100 of my juice and smoothie fast. People are still watching that to this day. And that video is like 6 years old. It's maybe about 7 years old. It's so old. It's actually 7 years old. People are still watching that video to this day. It gets a ton of views. I have over 100 and something thousand views on that video alone. But that was one thing that I did to tackle that physical barrier. The next thing that I did was I just had to get moving. And what I believe, okay, this is me. What I believe is key to tackling physical barriers is just starting somewhere with something in mind. Physical barriers could be you just need to be active. If you most of the time when it comes to physicality, to our physical nature, it's just about getting up and moving around. Now, I will admit that there are times where I go on like a hiatus. I just came off of it was like not even an 18-day, but almost an 18-day hiatus of not working out because I was just so stressed. Y'all know I was stressed over the article. I was stressed over so many things, stressed over work. And I just needed to handle. Now, I'm going to be honest, working out actually helps me handle stress. Exercising is actually great for me when it comes to handling stress. But I got into a place in my mind to where I was like, I don't want to think about that. That's going to exert energy. I just need to chill and relax. But when you get to that point, okay, you have to think about what your actual progress is, what your actual goals are. Like, what do you want to achieve? For some of you, your physical barrier may not be your weight. Your physical barrier could be, it could actually be a person. It could be a person, or it could be a job, or it could be anything, something that is physical, like that you can touch, right? Tangible. So when you're thinking about breaking through physical barriers, I want you to think about what you can do, what activity you can do to just get yourself moving. Sometimes activity is it's just the thing that will help you solve your problems for that day. Maybe going for a walk. If you don't want to run, go for a walk. It could be anything. Could be anything, whatever you like to do. That's the thing. Like, you don't have to do exactly what someone else does for their breakthrough. Do what works for you. And if you don't know what works for you yet, start doing different things. And then it's kind of like when do I want to share that? I'm not going to share that, but it's just kind of like when you're trying to figure out what works best for you. You start researching and seeing what other people do, and then you try it. And if you don't like it, then you just be like, well, I'm not going to use that anymore. I'm going to put that away and I'm going to do something different. That's basically what it is when it comes to the physical barriers. Okay, so breaking those physical barriers. Now, the next one is communication barriers. Breaking communication barriers. First, the first thing you have to do when you're trying to break through a communication barrier is you have to be willing to be attentive. You have to be willing to be attentive. And that means that you want to listen to the other party, to the other person, or if it's in a group setting, you just want to be an active listener. And then any blockages that may be happening, maybe there's some type of good morning, dear. Any blockages that may be happening, maybe there's some type of confusion or what have you. Instead of trying to get your point across, because that's what we do oftentimes, we're like, well, no, you gonna hear what I have to say today. Okay, well, instead of you trying to get your point across, why don't you stop? Take a moment to make sure that you understand what the other person was saying before you respond, right? Before you respond to whatever it is you're going to say, just pause, take a moment and say, okay, so if I'm not mistaken, this is what you are saying. And this is not just for work, okay? This is also great for friendships, relationships, family, anything like that, okay? But more so, I'm definitely talking about business right now. I'm talking about, employment, career, but business, but this works for any type of relationship as well. So you want to just clarify to make sure that you understand. Make sure that you clear up any blockages, make sure that you understand completely what has been said, and then you can respond. Now, here's the thing. We can't control people. We can't control whether or not they listen to us. We can't control, that. So, that's the thing. We don't know if someone is actually going to be able to be willing to understand what we're trying to communicate. So at that point, just ask them to repeat it back in a nice way. In a kind, loving way, in a professional way. Ask them to repeat it back just so you can make sure that there's no barrier, that there's no blockage there. Now, this is when we're talking about like verbal communication. You can do this exact same practice when we're talking about electronic communication as well, like sending emails, things like that. But most of the time, if you get to the point where there's a communication barrier, and you're sending electronic mail, it's time to pick up the phone or go face to face. Okay, it's time to pick up the phone, have a conversation, or just go face to face if you're able to, right? If you're able to go face to face, so then do that. Okay, so that was breaking physical barriers and then breaking communication barriers. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the last two barriers to break, which are attitudinal barriers and systemic barriers. I kind of want to do systemic barriers first. So let me just back up really quickly. When we're talking about systemic barriers, we're talking about policies or practices that are set in place to exclude a certain demographic, right? Or a certain type of person or an individual. Systemic barriers happen all the time. We know it happens in our governments. It happens unfortunately, it happens in our churches. It happens in our schools, our educational institutions. It happens everywhere. And so you can allow that barrier to be so strong and keep you, or any, maybe it's a loved one or someone, keep you or them away from progress moving forward, or you can address it. This is one of the ways to break down that systemic barrier right there. Address it. And you want to do it, of course, you want to do it as professional as you possibly can. But there does come a time when you have to stand your ground, and you might have to speak very, very firmly about it. Listen, I understand that first of all, why is this practice put in place? It is excluding me, or it is excluding like a certain group of people. That just doesn't seem ethical. It doesn't seem ethical at this time. I mean, there are ways, and then you might actually want to go and check on your, if it's an organization, okay, or if it's a company or whatever, you may actually want to go and look at policies and practices. Look at your employee handbook, because sometimes these barriers, these systemic barriers that are created, are completely against the company's bylaws or handbook. So they could just be something that's been created because of the company culture, but it's not actually according to the company's guidelines. So just double check, go back and look. I mean, you can't be lazy when it comes to going up against a system, right? You do have to do your work. You got to do your homework and just double check the facts so that you're able to effectively break down this barrier, not just for you, but for any other person that may fall under that category of being excluded. You're not just fighting for you. You're not just breaking barriers for you. You're breaking them for other people as well. And that brings me to the attitudinal barriers. Man, we have so many assumptions up here that block us from moving forward. Okay. If you know that this is the truth, go ahead and tell me in the comments. You telling the truth. You are telling the truth. We have created barriers in our minds that keep us from moving forward. It keeps us from thinking positively. It keeps us from actually manifesting the things that we really want to happen in life, because we're thinking negatively. We have these assumptions. We have all of this, we have just all of this stuff that's in our mind saying, hey, you know what? You ain't never gonna do this. One of the attitudinal barriers, especially for single people, can be like, you know what? Ain't no good people left out here. There's no one left out here that's gonna fit the mold. That's gonna be exactly what you want. And I mean, that's actually true. That's actually true. The barrier that you have to change in your mindset is that, so nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. If I ain't perfect, I don't think he needs to be perfect either. I mean, we need to be able to work together. We need to be able to flow together. But that's a barrier that I have to break. Your barriers are your blocks, the things that you're thinking about, right? Daily attitude check is crucial, especially, oh goodness, if you're talking about being successful, if you're talking about taking your business to the next level or having financial success, you cannot have that poverty mentality. You cannot be stingy. You can't just sit and think all the time, well, I ain't never gonna have this. Ooh, that would be nice to afford, but the way my life is set up. The way your life is set up is because that's what you continue to think. You are blockading yourself. You are causing barriers to be around your manifestation of what you really, really want to happen, because you're thinking so negatively about it. So one of the things that you can do, okay, one of the things that you can do, okay, I'm back. This is China. All right. Okay, so one of the things that you can do to break through those attitudinal barriers. Am I back? Okay, I'm back. Internet, come on now. I'm almost at the end. Don't start messing up now. All right. One of the things that you could do to break through the attitudinal barriers is you got to change what you're listening to. Change what you're listening to. I love listening to audiobooks. I also read, just textbooks, paper books, and then, electronic books, because I love my Kindle reader. What you see on TV. What are you putting into your system? What are you giving yourself access to that will help you be able to be strong enough to break through these mental barriers, these attitudinal barriers? If you are feeding yourself negativity, guess what? Your barrier is going to get thicker and thicker and thicker, stronger and stronger and stronger, and you're not going to be able to break through that. But if you start listening to things that encourages you, like these Monday motivation sessions, right? These let's talk sessions. If you're listening to something positive, or you're listening to relaxing music, something that will help strengthen you. Something that will help strengthen you, so that as you begin to break down barriers, that you're stronger than the barrier. But when you are accepting negativity, when you are allowing things to happen that negatively affect your progress, you're making yourself weaker instead of being a barrier breaker. And so what I want to encourage you to do on today and moving forward is, whenever you see all of these barriers starting to happen in your life, and some of you're already having the barriers. Some of you that's why you're watching right now, because you're like, look, Dr. C, I can't even move forward. Like, I just feel stuck. Unstick yourself by breaking the barrier. You have the power. You literally have you have barrier breaking power. Okay. Let me say that again, because that's BBP. You have barrier breaking power within you. How? The moment you decide to have barrier breaking power is when you have it. The moment that you say, all right, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm tired of not moving forward. I'm tired of losing. I'm tired of being physically attacked. I'm tired of communication lagging. I'm just, and some of these things are completely spiritual as well. You know that. Some of these things come from attacks in the spirit realm that come and they manifest themselves in the natural realm. And you have to, the moment that you decide that enough is enough, that I'm done being blockaded in, I'm done being hindered from moving forward, that moment is a pivotal moment. That's the moment when you start to gain strength, that you become strong enough to start knocking down those barriers, to start breaking down barriers. Will it happen overnight? For some of you, maybe. For some of you, your barrier may not be as thick or big or strong as another's. But for some of us, these barriers, because they have been ingrained in us for such a long time, especially systemic barriers, things like that. These are barriers that have been happening for such a long time that they are so thick. They're huge. They're like 12 brick walls back to back to back. And so being able to break through them, being able to knock down those barriers will take some time, but it's definitely going to take intention. We have to be intentional about knocking down the barriers that are holding us back. If you just let things happen, you're just like, well, you know what? If God wanted me to be successful, he would have let me be successful by now. Really? Like, do you really, is that what you really think? Because I used to think like that. Okay. I used to think like that. And then I realized that, but he says in, I believe it's Deuteronomy 8:18, behold, I give you power to get wealth. He says, behold, I give you. You already got the power. You already have the power to be successful. You just need some strategies. You need some implementation. You need an action plan. You need goals. So if you just sit back and be like, well, you know, one day it'll happen. But I already gave you the power to do it. You know, like I'm talking like God. You'd be like, but you got the power already. Like, use it. Do something with it, right? Listen, you have barrier breaking power the moment you decide to have it. I know there's some things that's going on in your life right now. I know that, you know, you're just like, I don't know what to do. This is a time when, especially if you're a kingdom believer, this is a time when prayer and fasting is your answer. I am telling you from firsthand experience right now, prayer and fasting is your answer. And the more you surrender to, don't surrender to your problem. Okay. Don't surrender to your problem. Don't surrender to the barrier. Don't be like, you know what? I give up. Why? Don't give up so easily. When you surrender to your problem, you show that your problem is bigger than God. You show that your problem is bigger than your God. But when you submit that problem, that means you turn it in. You hand it over. You hand it over to God. You be like, you know what, God, this one on you right here. Unless you show me exactly what to do, I got to take my hands off of it. And this one is on you. I am submitting this to you, giving it to you so that you can take care of it, that you can show me what to do. I'm taking my hands off of it because this barrier is too strong for me. And then when he gives you the tools, he starts bringing in, you know, weapons of warfare, honey. When he starts bringing in these good old weapons for you to knock down these barriers that are happening from spiritual and manifesting in the natural, it's like freedom like none other. It's like when these attitudinal barriers break, there's such a freedom that happens. There's such a, I wish I could really explain it. I don't know how to explain it other than the fact that like, it's freeing. It's freeing to stop having negative assumptions. And I'm telling you this because I'm working on, in one particular area of my life, I'm working on being free from negative assumptions. Now, I'd have mastered it in other areas of my life, my career and all of this other stuff. Y'all, let me tell you something. Your girl is doing well. Okay. I am, by the grace of God, I have vigor, I have stamina, I have consistency. Like God is just blessing me to be able to move forward in the direction of my dreams. My life is hectic. Okay. Let me just go ahead and clear that out. It is hectic. But if I allowed my thinking to be a barrier saying, girl, this is too much. Now, you know good and well, this is way too much for you to handle. If I allow the negativity to sit in, and to become a barrier, I wouldn't be moving forward. I would not be moving forward. I would be procrastinating. I would be that paralysis. I would just be sitting there. Instead of working, I would be watching Netflix. Listen, Netflix will save the day, okay? But it can also ruin your progress if you're not. Listen, these people that's on Netflix that we're watching, they making money. Every time you watch, they're making money. But what are you doing? Are you actually getting up and getting work done? What goals and what dreams have you set that barriers are blocking right now? You need to break through those barriers. You have, I'm going to say it again because I feel like somebody needs to hear it. You have barrier breaking power within you the moment you decide to. When you say enough is enough. All right, you know what? I'm going back to school. Enough is enough. You know, when you defeat that mentality of saying, man, you know, I'm at a certain age right now. I don't want to go back to school because I didn't do well in school in the first place. I didn't do well in first grade and kindergarten. I'm talking about going back to school now, and I'm in my, 40s, 50s, 60s. Listen, break that barrier down. Break that barrier down, break through it. And then you have to remember that you're not breaking through this barrier on your own. Do I need to remind you? Let me remind you. Let me come on up here and remind you real quick what the words say. In Micah 2:13, it says that the one who breaks open the way will go up before. I'm going to insert you right here. And then you will break through the gate and go out. You will break through that barrier and go out because the one who is going before you, because you actually submitted and surrendered to him. Now you ain't got to worry about it no more. He went through it first. And this is what I meant when I say surrender. Surrender, instead of surrendering to the problem, submitting things to God, submitting the issues to God. Listen, I don't know the type of God you believe in, but the one that I believe in, like, he is so attentive. He will listen. Sometimes I feel like I be getting on his nerves because I be talking to him all the time. I be like, look. And then, if God had a phone, I know that his voicemail is full of stuff that I done said. Okay, listen, he's big enough to deal with all of us, but let me tell you something. I know that I be ringing him up 24/7. You hear me? I be ringing him up all the time. I be like, look, Lord. I talk to him about what I'm about to eat. Like when I'm cooking, I'll be like, look, I'm not feeling this in my spirit. He'd be like, Charity, it's lamb. It's lamb. Why are you talking to me about this today? Because we got to be in tune. We got to be in sync right now because I need this relationship, this connection that we have. It helps me to easily break barriers when they come. Some of your barriers aren't even here yet. Some barriers, they still trying to get to you. They still on the way. And if you put yourself in the mindset of, you know what, I have barrier breaking power before the barrier even comes. When it comes, you'll be able to judo chop that thing, just knock right through it. And it'll be like, oh, wow, that didn't last long. Man, whew, I want to speak that into somebody's life. I caught it and received it for myself. But listen, there are some barriers and there's some instances and situations that's going to try to hit you. But because you have barrier breaking power and you decided at this moment, you decided today, right now, that you were going to keep that barrier breaking power, whenever the barrier comes to you, you're going to be able to knock straight through and be like, wow, that didn't last long at all. Okay. All right. Well, let's just keep moving. Let's keep moving forward and keep progressing. It doesn't have to last long. Your barrier, it can be knocked down at any time. At any time you decide to. Some of your barriers, they may be really, really high, really, really tall. Start knocking them down. Brick by brick, piece by piece. And you do that by getting your mind together, getting your mind right, strengthening yourself. And like I said, listening to the right things, right? So I love what my mom put down there. She said, yeah, something has to break. Listen, I would rather the barrier break than me break. Hello. Did you hear me? I would rather break the barrier than have the barrier break me. Acknowledging God in all of our ways is key. Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, don't let your barrier break you. Don't do it. Don't let the barriers break you. You got to break through the barriers. The barriers come so that they can break you. So that they can basically disappoint you and discourage you, and so that your expectations feel like they aren't being met. Knock them barriers down. Knock them down with positive words. Knock them down with open communication. Knock them down with belief and trust. Knock them down with physical activity when we're talking about physical barriers. Do it. You have barrier breaking power. Okay. I cannot say it enough. You have barrier breaking power the moment that you decide to. So I hope and pray that today, that this moment is your day to decide, you know what? I got barrier breaking power. When you go to work, I got barrier breaking power. Regardless of what you're doing, I have barrier breaking power. That's what I want for you. That's what I truly, truly believe that God has in store for you. And that's what I believe that God wanted you to hear today, that you have the power to break through any and every barrier that presents itself to you, whether they're barriers that are happening right now or barriers that will come in the future. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's Monday Motivation Let's Talk series. I invite you to connect with me on social media as a follower, as a family member, as an entre leader. If you are tired of having great ideas, lucrative ideas, but you just have a little bit of difficulty going from concept to creation, or if you want to harness the power of the true leader that you have on the inside of you by becoming more confident, and or maybe you just want to become a better communicator for your personal and a professional life, then make sure you tune in right here every Monday. Every week, you're going to find encouragement to fuel your flames as you go after your goals. And you can also tune in on Wednesdays to the Leaders Lab podcast, where, hey, we're helping to develop more leaders for the kingdom. And y'all go out there and make a difference. All right. So once again, I want to say thank you so much for tuning in today. Nina, thank you. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Sometimes I can't see because I'm using a third party. So sometimes I can't see who all is up here. But so that's why you see me looking down, because I'm looking at my phone at the comments. So when you comment, that's when I can see if you're here. So I do want to say thank you. Yes, you do have barrier breaking power, boo. You better keep that barrier breaking power as well. All right, guys. Love you so much. Be blessed, and I'll see you next week.